The budget red box was raised outside number 11, but it contained a narrative that had largely been set by number 10.
Are you in charge, Mr. Hammond?
The Chancellor, known for his inclination for caution, charged instead with treading a politically perilous path. To demonstrate the direction of travel on the Prime Minister's promise to end austerity, but doing so on the assumption Brexit talks are heading towards a deal, despite the deep uncertainty over the ultimate destination.
I now call the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the Right Honourable Philip Hammond.
Yeah! From the outset, the Chancellor claimed this was a budget with the needs of the British people at its heart.
A budget for hard-working families who live their lives far from this place and care little for the twists and turns of Westminster politics, the strivers, the grafters and the carers who are the backbone of our communities and our economy.
Returning time and again to the Prime Minister's claim that this was an end of an era.
I can report to the British people that their hard work is paying off and the era of austerity is finally coming to an end.
Pots of hundreds of millions were announced for mental health, the Ministry of Defence, social care, counter-terrorism policing, potholes and schools. But the big decisions on what government departments will have to spend were pushed back to next year's review, meaning much rests on the outcome of Brexit negotiations.
We're at a pivotal moment in our EU negotiations and the stakes could not be higher. Get it right and we will not only protect Britain's jobs, businesses and prosperity, but we will also harvest a double deal dividend, a boost from the end of uncertainty and a boost from releasing some of the fiscal headroom that I am holding in reserve at the moment.
But there was an acknowledgement that no deal could happen. And in addition to boosting the no-deal preparation war chest by £500 million, the Chancellor said he was ready to call for a fresh budget in the spring if it was needed.
I will take whatever action is appropriate, if necessary, upgrading the spring statement to a full fiscal event.
In terms of money-raising measures, the most eye-catching was a new digital services tax targeting firms like Google and Facebook.
This will be a narrowly targeted tax on the UK-generated revenues of specific digital platform business models. It will be carefully designed to ensure it is established tech giants, rather than our tech startups, that shoulder the burden of this new tax.
Nods of approval from the DUP for announcements of money for Northern Ireland will have been a reassurance to the Chancellor, fearful that losing their backing could see his budget voted down. But it was on universal credit, the government's flagship welfare reform, that he faced the most dangerous threat of a Tory backbench revolt. Investments worth an additional £2.7 billion, perhaps enough to see that off for now. But there was a clear refusal of Labour's demand that the rollout be stopped.
Universal credit is here to stay. And we are putting in the funding it needs to make it a success.
And in a further step to see off Tory MPs concerned by the lack of tax cuts, the Chancellor brought forward plans to increase personal allowances.
So I will raise both the personal allowance and the higher rate threshold to these levels from April 2019, delivering our manifesto commitments 1 year early. A tax cut for 32 million people, £130 in the pocket of a typical basic rate taxpayer.
In his response, Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn dismissed what he described as the ideological tax cuts for the rich and challenged the central premise of the budget.
The government claims austerity has worked, so now they can end it. But that is absolutely the opposite of the truth. Austerity needs to end because it has failed.
The SNP leader, meanwhile, accused the Chancellor of failing to set out how the UK would deal with Brexit uncertainty.
The storm is coming, and this government hasn't even brought an umbrella, never mind the shelter we need. This budget leaves us wholly unprepared for the Brexit bombshell heading towards us. It fails to protect current and future generations.
This was a budget where the Chancellor was boxed in by the Prime Minister in more ways than one. Choosing giveaways over balancing the books is an uncomfortable choice for the man who describes himself as Fiscal Phil. Tom Rayner, Sky News, Westminster.